The sun over the Pacific was white-hot, bleaching everything it touched. The ocean below shimmered like a sheet of molten steel. Inside his P-47 Thunderbolt, Captain Nathan Falcon Hale wiped sweat from his eyes and adjusted his oxygen mask. The air smelled of rubber, oil, and the faint sweetness of burning cordite that never really left the cockpit after a mission. He was supposed to be heading home. Mission complete. Routine reconnaissance over Tinian, the flat, ugly island that the brass said was strategically vital. The kind of words men used when they didn't have to fly over it. Hale had been up for 6 hours, his radio half dead, fuel gauge flirting with empty. Below him, the island looked quiet, too quiet. He rolled the plane slightly, squinting through the haze. The shoreline was a mix of coral and wreckage, Japanese tanks half buried in sand, blackened trucks, palm trees cut clean in half. The war had carved the place down to bone. He'd seen that before, on Saipan, on Tarawa, on every patch of Pacific rock they'd taken. But something was wrong. The jungle looked alive. It wasn't the way the leaves moved. It was the way they didn't. No wind, no shimmer. Stillness, the kind that meant waiting. He banked lower. The Thunderbolt growled. His altimeter dropped, 2,500 feet. Then he saw it, a camouflaged clearing barely visible from above. The pattern was too perfect, too regular. He recognized the shape instantly, 6 aircraft, tail to nose, hidden under palm fronds. Japanese Kai-61 Tony fighters, operational, waiting. Jesus, he muttered. The intel had been wrong. Command said Tinian's air force was gone. But right there, in that perfect little green lie, were enough planes to tear apart the landing convoys due to arrive in 48 hours. Thousands of men, ships and supplies, sitting ducks. He checked his ammo count. 2 belts left, enough for 1 run, maybe 2. He hit the transmit switch. Static. He tried again. Nothing. The radio was dead. No way to call it in, no way to warn them. The logical thing was to go back, report, refuel, bring bombers. But by the time he returned, the sun would be down, and those fighters would be airborne by morning. The invasion fleet would come under attack before dawn. He knew the math, knew the odds, and none of it mattered. He banked again, bringing the Thunderbolt around in a wide circle over the clearing. The Japanese hadn't spotted him yet. He could feel the heat of his own pulse through his gloves. His heart didn't pound fast, it just got heavy. Decisions like this didn't come with drum rolls. He pressed the throttle. The engine roared. The plane dropped lower. The clearing erupted into movement, men running, tarps flapping, silhouettes darting between the aircraft. Someone had seen him. He didn't have time to think. He flicked the safety off, lined up his sights, and squeezed. The guns spat light and sound. The first burst walked across the jungle floor, a neat line of dust and blood. The second tore through the first fighter, flipping it onto its side. The plane went up like a bomb, the palm fronds igniting instantly. He saw men scatter, some firing rifles uselessly into the sky. The Thunderbolt roared past, so low that branches slapped against its belly. "Come on," he hissed, pulling hard on the stick. The world tilted. The horizon swung. He came around for another run. The clearing below was chaos now. Smoke, fire, flashes of light. The second line of Japanese planes was taxiing onto a makeshift strip. They were trying to get airborne. He dove. Tracer rounds arced up to meet him, thin and bright. He could see the muzzle flashes like fireflies against the black smoke. He felt a punch through the left wing. Not a hit that mattered yet, but one that promised 2. He aimed for the second fighter on the line and fired. The rounds found the fuel tank. The explosion tore the jungle open. The blast wave shook him even from above. He pulled up, gasping. The cockpit filled with light from the burning below. For a moment, the island glowed like daylight. He leveled out and checked his ammo. One belt left. He could see movement in the smoke. More planes rolling forward. They weren't giving up. He turned again, slower this time. The Thunderbolt was heavy, sluggish, wings shuddering with every gust. He felt the aircraft wanting to stall, but he ignored it. He lined up the run, took a breath, and went in one more time. He hit the last line of planes just as the first of them lifted off. A Ki-61 rose from the smoke almost face to face with him. For 1 second, Hale saw the Japanese pilot, bareheaded, mouth open, eyes wide. Both men fired at once. The sky between them turned white with tracers. The Ki-61's canopy exploded, glass flashing in the sun. The fighter rolled over, hit the trees, and vanished in a fireball. Hale's Thunderbolt shuddered, then coughed. Once, twice. A burst of smoke belched from the cowling. Instruments danced wildly. Oil pressure dropped to 0. He'd been hit. He looked down. The airfield below was burning. 6 planes destroyed, a dozen men running for cover. He had done it, but he wasn't getting home. He leveled the wings, pointed the nose toward the sea, and tried the radio again. Static. Only his own breath in his ears. "Guess that's it, Nate," he said softly. "You wanted to make a difference." He flipped the safety cover on his flare pistol and looked down again. Something caught his eye. Movement at the edge of the jungle. Trucks. Dozens of them. He realized what they were carrying. Bombs. Crates of ammunition. The ground shook as one of the fires reached them. A chain of explosions rolled through the trees, each one bigger than the last. The whole hillside went up, sending a mushroom of smoke into the blue sky. He smiled without meaning to. He hadn't just stopped a flight. He'd ignited a depot. The engine coughed again, then stopped. Silence hit like a physical thing. He glided. The ocean rose to meet him. He could see the waves now. White, sharp. He tightened his harness, unbuckled the flare pistol, and looked out at the endless, shining water. For a moment he thought of home. Of Oregon fields. Of a face he hadn't seen in 2 years. Of rain that didn't smell like fire. Then the Thunderbolt hit the sea. The impact tore the world apart. For a moment, everything was water and light. The Thunderbolt's nose hit the ocean at 120 knots, shearing the propeller clean off. The canopy burst open. Salt water flooded the cockpit, burning his eyes, filling his mouth. Hale kicked free, lungs screaming, fingers clawing at the straps that wanted to drag him down with 2,000 pounds of dying steel. He broke the surface, gasping. The Pacific slapped him once, twice, as if to check if he was still alive. The sun was blinding, the kind of light that didn't forgive mistakes. He spun, searching. The P-47 was already nose down, sliding into the blue, wings trailing bubbles. The last thing he saw before it vanished was the white star on its tail spinning lazily, then gone. Silence, except for the hiss of wind over waves. He was alone. He kicked out of his boots, inflated the yellow Mae West life vest, and let himself float. Oil slicks spread across the water, rainbow colors dancing on death. Bits of aluminum drifted by like confetti after a bad parade. He wiped the salt from his face and looked toward Tinian. The island was 10 miles away. Smoke still rose from the jungle where he'd set it on fire. The black column looked like a signal flare to every enemy ship and patrol in the area. "Hell of a way to get noticed," he muttered. He checked his survival kit. A pistol with 1 magazine, a folding knife, a mirror, and a single emergency flare. No radio. The ocean had taken that first. He started paddling toward the island, slow and steady, every stroke dragging against invisible weight. The Pacific wasn't just water, it was distance made liquid. Hours passed. The sun dropped lower. His arms felt like someone else's. Then the sound. Engines, not airplanes. Boats. He twisted in the water, heart kicking. Through the haze, a dark shape grew larger, a small patrol craft, gray hull rising and falling with the waves. Too small for American, the rising sun flag snapped in the wind. Japanese. He froze. There was nowhere to go. The water was a mirror. Any movement would draw their eyes. He pulled the life vest tighter, sank until only his face was above the surface, and prayed the waves would hide him. Voices carried across the water, sharp, rhythmic. A spotlight swept left and right. It brushed the surface near him close enough to light the oil slick. The beam lingered. Hale's breath caught. He went still, eyes closed as if stillness could make him part of the sea. A shout. The spotlight returned brighter. He kicked down hard, dove, lungs burning. The world turned green and silent again. He counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, surfaced behind a drifting piece of wreckage. The spotlight danced past, searching. They had seen him. A rifle cracked. A bullet slapped the water to his left. Another hit the debris he hid behind, splintering it. The boat was turning toward him, engine whining. Hale reached for his pistol, useless against a ship. He scanned the water, nothing but waves and wreckage, until his eyes found it. A slick of oil thick enough to burn. It trailed from his crashed Thunderbolt, stretching toward the ship like a path drawn by fate. He took the flare gun. His hands shook. He waited until the boat was halfway into the slick, the engine roar loud enough to drown his breath. He raised the flare pistol, aimed at the water, and fired. The flare hit the surface, hissed, then bloomed. For a second it looked like nothing. Then the fire spread. The sea turned orange. The oil caught, racing toward the patrol boat faster than wind. The first tongues of flame licked the hull. Hale saw the panic. Shouts, movement. Men grabbing buckets that meant nothing. The boat veered too late. The flames reached the stern. A flash, then a roar. The explosion threw fire into the sky. He ducked as burning fuel rained down around him. The heat rolled over the water in waves. He kicked backward away from the blaze until his lungs clawed for air. When he looked again, the patrol boat was listing, flames chewing through its sides. He floated, stunned. The smell of gasoline and char filled his nose. The firelight painted the sea red and gold. The screams faded, replaced by the hiss of steam and the slow crackle of dying wood. He had killed them. Men he couldn't see. Men who might have surrendered if the world had allowed it. But the ocean didn't deal in mercy. He drifted in the glow until the fire died down. Then he turned back toward the island, arms shaking. The adrenaline leaving him hollow. The horizon was a thin line of smoke and stars. He paddled until the current took him, too tired to fight. At some point, he stopped knowing if he was awake or dreaming. The sea turned to glass again, the kind that showed reflections instead of mercy. In it, he saw a face that wasn't his own, the Japanese pilot from earlier, the one he'd met nose to nose before both planes exploded into the same sky. Hale blinked. The face vanished. When he looked up again, the moon had climbed higher. The island was closer now. Dark cliffs, white surf. He could hear it breathing, hear waves crash against coral. He made it to shore just before dawn. His arms were useless. He crawled through the surf, dragging himself across sharp coral until his hands were cut and bleeding. He lay there, half in water, half in sand, until the tide receded from his body like it was giving him back to the earth. Above the tree line, black smoke still rose from the airfield he'd destroyed. He'd won, in some twisted Pyrrhic sense. The Japanese fighters were gone. The invasion fleet would come. But now he was on the island that was supposed to be silent, and it was awake. A voice shouted in the jungle, then another. Boots. He rolled onto his stomach, reached for his pistol, and pulled himself toward the nearest rock. The voices were getting closer. The hunt had already begun. The jungle swallowed him whole. Hale moved through the trees with his breath in his teeth and blood on his fingers. The air was thick, wet, buzzing, alive with things that didn't care who was winning the war. Every step sounded too loud. His flight boots squelched in mud that smelled of salt and sap and something sweeter. Decay. Behind him the voices came again. Japanese. 2 groups, maybe 3. One shouted, another answered farther off. They were closing in from the beach, moving in a half circle. He could picture them without seeing them. Rifles held low, bayonets fixed, listening for a foreign breath. He found a fallen palm and slid under it, pulling leaves over his back until the green light dimmed to black. He lay there and let his pulse slow until it hurt. The sound of his own heartbeat felt like a flare in the quiet. A soldier passed so close that Hale saw the print of the man's toes through his split canvas shoes. The smell of sweat and gun oil and rice. Then the man was gone, the sound of his boots fading uphill. Hale waited a full minute before he moved. The forest had rules. The first minute was for ghosts. The second was for mistakes. Only after the third did the living move again. He crawled toward the ridge where the ground rose and the trees thinned. The sky was paling. Dawn was close. His arms were trembling from fatigue and the cold that comes after too much adrenaline. The pistol was still in his hand, though he didn't remember pulling it. He'd used 3 rounds the night before, 2 at shadows, 1 at the flare. 7 left. He reached the crest and froze. Below him, the jungle dropped away into a clearing. One of the Japanese outposts he'd seen from the air the day before. 2 trucks, a radio mast, and a single tent made of camo netting. A generator chugged weakly beside it, the sound swallowed by the wind. 3 soldiers sat on crates drinking from tin cups. A radio. If he could reach it, he could send a signal. If he could send a signal, someone might hear it. The fleet, the bombers, anyone. The thought hit him like morphine. Sharp, bright, dangerous. He studied the pattern of movement. 1 guard walked the perimeter every 2 minutes, stopping at the mast to light a cigarette before turning back. The others barely looked up. He waited for the guard to disappear behind the trucks, then slid down the slope on his belly. The mud was cool under his burns. His fingers found every root, every stone. He moved the way the jungle told him to move, slow, steady, smaller than the noise around him. At the edge of the clearing, he stopped. 10 yards of open ground, a ditch, shallow but wide. On the other side, the tent. He ran. His boots hit mud. He slipped, caught himself, dove. The sound was small but not small enough. A voice barked something sharp. Hale froze. He waited for the shout that meant discovery. It didn't come. The guard had seen nothing. The jungle lied well. He crawled the last few feet to the tent and ducked inside. The air smelled of sweat and ozone. The radio sat on a folding table, headset resting on a map marked with red circles. He knew enough Japanese from training to find the switch that mattered. He turned it on. The generator hummed louder. The needles flickered. Static filled his ears. He pressed the transmit key and spoke into the mic. "This is..." He hesitated. His call sign was gone with his plane. He tried again. "This is American pilot, downed over Tinian. Enemy airfield destroyed. Repeat, airfield destroyed. Invasion safe. Request immediate pickup." Over. He released the key and listened. Nothing. He tried again. "This is Captain Nathan Hale. P-47 Thunderbolt, serial..." He couldn't remember the number, it didn't matter. "Repeat, requesting rescue." The static cracked. For a second he thought he heard a voice. Then another sound overrode it. Boots on gravel. He turned. A soldier stood in the doorway, rifle half raised, eyes wide with shock. Hale's hand moved before thought. The pistol barked once. The man dropped. The other two shouted. Hale hit the switch again, shouting into the mic, "Friendly forces inbound. I am under fire." The radio screamed feedback. He ducked as a burst of bullets ripped through the tent, shattering the equipment. The glass dials exploded in his face. He crawled backward, firing blindly. One of the soldiers fell, the other rushed him with a bayonet. The blade slashed his shoulder. He felt the sting, the heat, the cold after. He pulled the trigger again. The man folded into the mud. The generator sputtered and died. The radio went silent for good. Smoke curled from the holes in the canvas. He tore a strip of cloth and pressed it against his shoulder, teeth gritted. The pain steadied him. Then he heard it. Faint, distant above the trees, the low, deliberate thrum of aircraft engines. He stumbled out of the tent and looked up. 3 shapes, silver and straight-winged, moving fast. American, the invasion recon squadron. He ran into the clearing, waving his arms, blood and mud mixing on his sleeve. He fired the pistol into the air until it clicked empty. The planes didn't see him. They were too high, the smoke too thick. They kept flying north toward the fleet. He watched them go until they were dots. Then he laughed, a dry, broken sound that was more breath than voice. He looked down at the dead soldiers, the wrecked radio, the trucks still idling. He climbed into one of the trucks, hands slippery on the wheel. The keys were in the ignition. The gods of small things were still watching. He turned it on. The engine coughed, then caught. He slammed the gear into reverse and drove straight into the tent, crushing the radio mast. Sparks rained down. He floored the accelerator, steering the truck downhill toward the cliffs. He could hear shouts behind him. More soldiers, more voices. The jungle opened ahead, sunlight flashing through gaps. He saw the ocean again, blue and endless. At the edge of the cliff, he didn't stop. He jumped from the cab at the last second. The truck sailed off, carrying its fuel and its fire with it. It hit the rocks below and exploded. The blast threw wind and heat up the hill. Hale lay on his back, watching the smoke rise. The column was black against the sky, thick, tall, unmistakable. A signal. He smiled. "Now you'll see me." He stayed there until the sound of engines returned. This time it was louder, closer, hungrier. American wildcats circling, the kind of sound you could mistake for salvation. He raised one arm, weakly. The planes dipped their wings in recognition. The last thing he felt was the wind pushing down as they passed overhead. The pressure was warm, almost human. When the landing teams reached the shore 6 hours later, they found him at the cliff's edge, burned, bandaged with his own sleeve, pistol empty. They buried him above the water he'd fallen into twice and named the smoke column Falcon's Flare on the battle map. Command later confirmed that the airfield he'd destroyed had been scheduled to launch 32 fighters at dawn. None of them ever left the ground. They said Captain Nathan Hale died alone, but the fleet said otherwise. They said one man had guided them in. And for years afterward, every pilot flying over Tinian would look down at the dark scar in the trees and whisper, "That's where the Falcon landed."